So, I'm sure you've all seen those very exciting pictures where if you look at it, on one hand, it looks like two people whose face are facing each other. Or if you look at it a little bit differently, it could in fact be a wine cup. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. Sometimes we can all look at things and we can see one thing. Maybe it looks like the glass could be, I don't know, half empty. And some of us may see something else, like the glass is in fact half full. And yet the truth is it's an and moment. It all comes down to our individual perspective. What's fascinating though is that if you think the glass is half empty, you may in fact make some choices that reflect a pessimistic, or if you ask a pessimist, they'll always tell you a realistic perspective and point of view. Why they have to be a little bit more conservative and a little bit more careful. But if you think the glass is half full, well, maybe you're going to be a little bit more carefree and free-flowing with some of your decisions. It all comes back to perspective. And it kind of goes back to how do we view our life? Do we view it as it's this wonderful, glowing, fantastic thing and that everything that happens to us for a reason? Or do we see that as we go through life and experience the vicissitudes of life, we are simply reactive to it and may at times simply be a victim of randomness that may happen in our life? All coming back, essentially, to our very perspective. And if we sit there and we think the glass is half empty, the glass is half full, it's black, it's white, I want to keep one picture in mind that we may need to remember, that maybe it's also an and moment. When the Israelites were just about ready to enter into the wilderness, from the wilderness into the land of Israel, they were exiting the land of the wilderness, Moses charged the people and said, after you've crossed the Jordan, following, you shall place a stand on Mount Gerizim. When the blessings for the people are spoken, Shimon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Yosef, and Benjamin, and the curses, the following shall stand on Mount Ebal and say, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites shall then proclaim in a loud voice to all of the people of Israel, and so forth. And we can see that some people are on one side and some people are on the other. And really nobody's necessarily in between. But have you ever thought of the geography of Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal? And what does it really mean that one side is focused on blessings, the good, and one side's focused on curses, the bad? Well, on Mount Gerizim, something that's mentioned 4 different times in the Bible, I'll have you know, it today is called Jabal al-Tur in Israel, and it stands approximately 2,890 feet above sea level. And its twin, Mount Ebal to the north, which explains the name that they have come to be known by, which is the mountain cut in two. And in between this mountain cut in two lies the valley of Shechem. The north face of Mount Gerizim, the side facing the valley, is steep and sparsely covered with shrubs. You can imagine that it's rocky, and as they're standing there hearing these curses, the craziness happens. Plus, the rain runs down also the side of Mount Gerizim, making the valley of Shechem also a well-watered field. Therefore, Mount Gerizim can be a focus of true blessing, where water's running down, flowing into the valley, and things are growing and beautiful. But if you focus only on Mount Ebal, where water flows on the north side away from the valley, you would only see rocks and harshness. Not so much life happening, and water and life running away. The truth is that if we focus only on the blessings and we focus only on the curses, we're going to miss the valley of Shechem in the middle, where growth is possible and things happen. And if we recall also that we need both the blessings and the curses, I'll remind you simply that also what's in the valley, what's the benefit of being in a valley? It's not going to be burned up by the sun. You get the shadows at various points of the mountains. And so that also kind of reminds me, why? Because why we need Mount Ebal. We need those rocks. We need those tough moments, because only when we're climbing through and going over those rocks can we remember with a little bit of perspective what goodness is and what kindness is. Earlier this evening in our prayer book, we read this wonderful poem about kindness and how kindness, sometimes we can only understand it and experience it by recalling the absence of kindness in our lives. The absence of feeling somebody helping us when we most need help, the forgetfulness that we all can so easily succumb to by thinking that we're invincible and barely even mortal. And yet it is those very moments, our own mortality when it's brought forward into our face, the moments that we get sick, that we remember not to take our health for granted, that we remember how imperative it is that we value life. And sometimes we only remember that when faced with death itself. Sometimes, by the way, I forget and think how easy it is to travel. And then I'm reminded after I went backpacking this summer and I was carrying everything on my back, how hard it can be. I throw everything that I want in my car right now, and it's so convenient. But if I truly was focused on the things that I have in my life, I wouldn't take even my car for granted. I would remember too that that's a blessing. And sometimes if we lose our vehicle for whatever reason, there's an accident or a breakdown, we too may fall into the trap of not being and acting with gratitude. So I encourage all of us to recognize the ability to see both the good and the evil as necessary and incumbent to remind us of the imperative that they exist in our life, that we can't focus on the good without having a little bit of challenge. We can't reach our highest self without first climbing a few rocks. And we can't see the glass as half full all the time if we only see it as half empty. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.